Talking to people is something many of us find challenging. Some people are naturally good at it. They walk into a room, chat with everyone, and leave with smiles and connections. But then there are others, like how I used to be, who feel shy or awkward when meeting new people. The book, How to Talk to Anyone by Leil Lowndes is written to help people like us. It's perfect for anyone who has ever wondered, what do I say next? Or how do I make a good impression? The book is packed with 92 tips or little tricks to help anyone navigate social situations with confidence. It's about making the art of conversation feel less intimidating and more fun. Lowndes kicks off the book by teaching us about the power of first impressions. Did you know it only takes a few seconds for someone to form an opinion about you when they meet you for the first time? It sounds a little unfair, doesn't it? But it's true. Within moments, people decide whether you seem friendly, confident, or someone they'd like to talk to. That's why Lowndes' first few tips focus on nailing that initial interaction. One of the standout tips she shares early on is called the flooding smile. It's simple. Instead of smiling at someone right away when you see them, you wait a moment. When the person notices you, then you let your face light up with a warm, heartfelt smile. Why? Because it makes the smile feel personal, as if it's just for them. Imagine you're at a meeting, and a colleague walks into the room. Instead of giving them a quick automatic grin, wait until their eyes meet yours. Then smile slowly and warmly. It's like giving them a little gift wrapped in kindness. This technique, according to Lowndes, immediately makes people feel seen and valued. Lowndes also emphasizes how important body language is during a first impression. In fact, she claims that nonverbal cues matter even more than your actual words when meeting someone for the first time. Think about it. You might say polite things, but if your body language is closed off, like crossing your arms or looking down, people will feel disconnected. Instead, use open body language. Keep your posture relaxed, your hands uncrossed, and your eyes alert but friendly. This silently tells the other person, I'm open to talking to you. Next, Lowndes introduces the concept of sticky eyes. No, it's not as strange as it sounds. It simply means maintaining eye contact during a conversation, but doing it in a way that feels natural and caring, not intense or awkward. For example, instead of darting your eyes around the room when someone speaks, focus on the person as if their words are the most important thing in the world at that moment. Lowndes explains that this kind of focused attention sends a powerful message. You matter to me. One thing to keep in mind, though, is not to overdo it. Too much staring can seem overly intense. Balance is everything. Something else Lowndes discusses in detail is understanding the tone of your voice. Have you ever noticed how some people have a naturally warm or calming voice that just makes you want to listen to them? This isn't something you're born with. It's a skill you can develop. Lowndes encourages readers to lower their tone slightly when speaking. A deeper, slower voice radiates confidence and calmness, whereas a quick, high-pitched voice can sometimes give off the wrong impression, like being nervous or unsure. Practice this by recording yourself reading aloud and playing it back. It's an easy way to see how you sound to others. So far, we've touched on the first impression, but what happens after those initial few seconds? Lowndes dives into the art of starting conversations. This is where many people freeze up. They feel like they don't have anything interesting to say. But the truth is, you don't need to say anything groundbreaking. Lowndes suggests starting with an observation about your shared surroundings. For example, if you're at a party, you could say, "Wow, this place has such great decorations. Have you met the host yet?" Or, at a work event, you might ask, "Have you attended one of these before? They seem so organized." These observations give the other person something easy to respond to without putting too much pressure on them or on you. Another helpful tip is something Lowndes calls the business card of your personality. Imagine a business card. It's small, but it gives people a quick introduction to what you're all about. Similarly, when introducing yourself, share something interesting or unique about yourself right away. For instance, instead of just saying, "Hi, I'm Alex, and I work as an engineer," you could say, "Hi, I'm Alex, and I build cool things like roller coasters and high-tech gadgets as an engineer." That tiny detail makes you more memorable. One final nugget from this first section focuses on how to make people feel like a star. Lowndes writes that people love being around others who make them feel valued. Compliments play a huge role here, but not just any compliments. She introduces the concept of the killer compliment. Instead of generic praise like, "Nice job," give compliments that are highly specific and genuine. For instance, saying something like, "I really admire how you explained that so clearly. It's a great skill," feels much more meaningful. Amazingly, this is just the tip of the iceberg from the book's wealth of suggestions. The first few chapters work together to help you master the art of creating great first impressions and starting conversations with ease. By applying even one or two of these strategies, you can turn an average social interaction into something memorable and impactful. Part 2. Mastering the art of small talk and sparking meaningful connections. Once you've nailed the first impression, with your warm smile, open body language, and confident tone, the next big challenge is what comes right after: keeping the conversation going. This is where small talk comes into play. Now, you might think small talk is boring or pointless, but Leil Lowndes flips that perspective. She calls small talk the fine art that lays the foundation for bigger, more meaningful connections. Think of it like planting seeds. Those first few casual conversations might grow into friendships, business relationships, or even life-changing opportunities. In this section of the book, Lowndes gives several creative strategies to help you turn ordinary chit-chat into a memorable exchange. One of her first tips is something she calls the Big Three for small talk. It's a simple formula to help you keep the conversation flowing. Whenever you meet someone new, stick to 3 safe and universal topics: their surroundings, their hobbies or interests, and anything lighthearted that's happening. Here's an example. If you're at a wedding, you might say, "What a beautiful venue! Have you been here before?" Or, if you're sitting next to someone at a work event, you could ask, "What's been keeping you busy these days outside of work?" These are open-ended questions, which are key. Open-ended questions are ones that can't be answered with a simple yes or no. This gives the other person more room to talk, which is what you want. They do most of the talking while you actively listen. Lowndes calls this letting the other person shine. Now let's talk about how to handle conversations that feel lukewarm or like they're running out of steam. Lowndes introduces an important concept called conversation threading. Here's how it works. When the other person says something, pick one part of what they just said and pull on that thread by asking a follow-up question or making a comment. For instance, if they say, "I just got back from a weekend trip to the mountains," You could reply, "That sounds amazing. Do you go hiking often?" If someone mentions, "I recently started learning photography," you could say, "Oh, that's cool. What inspired you to give it a try?" By pulling on that thread, you keep the conversation flowing effortlessly. It's like tossing a ball back and forth. You're giving them something to react to. One of the most practical lessons in this part of the book is learning how to make introductions. Have you ever been in a group setting where two people clearly don't know each other, but you didn't know how to introduce them? Lowndes gives a simple yet brilliant formula for introductions. Always mention something interesting about each person. For example, instead of, "This is Sarah and this is Alex," you could say, "This is Sarah. She's an amazing baker. And this is Alex, who's really into traveling. I bet you might have some fun stories to share." This makes the introduction warmer and gives people something to talk about. Now comes one of my personal favorite tips from this part, the rubber band technique. Lowndes uses the example of a rubber band to explain how conversations naturally stretch and pop back. Let's say you're at a party. You ask someone, "How do you know the host?" They might reply, "Oh, we met in college." Here's where the rubber band stretches. You can follow up by asking something like, "What did you study?" Or, "Have you kept in touch all these years?" Each response pulls the rubber band a bit further until you build momentum. With this back-and-forth technique, you don't just make the conversation last, you make it meaningful. Lowndes also emphasizes the importance of avoiding conversation killers. These are things that can unintentionally halt the flow of dialogue. For example, giving one-word answers like cool, nice, or okay doesn't add anything new. Instead, try to build on their thoughts. If someone tells you about their weekend, instead of just replying, "Oh, that's fun," say something like, "That sounds so relaxing. I've never done that. How was it?" Another common mistake is interrupting too quickly. Let the other person finish what they're saying before you jump in. A pause might feel long to you, but to the other person, it shows you're truly listening. Lowndes offers another golden tip. Always keep a mental treasure chest of conversation starters. This is a collection of interesting questions or topics you can pull out if things go quiet. She suggests keeping these treasures light and universal. Here are a few examples you can try. What's a hobby you've recently gotten into? If you could take a trip anywhere right now, where would you go? What's the last thing you learned that really surprised you? These types of questions work because they let people talk about themselves or their dreams. Two things most people are happy to share. Now let's dig into a fascinating concept Lowndes calls boomeranging. Imagine you're having a conversation and someone asks, "What do you do for fun?" Instead of simply answering the question, try boomeranging it back to them. Here's how it works. You say, "I've recently started doing yoga. I love the mindfulness it brings. Have you ever tried yoga, or is there a hobby you're passionate about?" By turning the question back toward the other person, they have an opening to share more about themselves, which keeps the conversation lively. People enjoy conversations where they feel both listened to and included. Lowndes also encourages us to build the skill of saying people's names during conversations. It's such a small thing, but it makes a big impact. When someone hears you say their name while speaking, it creates a subconscious bond. For instance, instead of saying, "That's interesting," try saying, "That's interesting, Luke. How did you come up with that idea?" Just this tiny addition, using their name, makes the interaction feel more personalized and warm. Another powerful takeaway is the importance of showing curiosity. Lowndes writes, "Curiosity is a superpower in social settings. Have you ever met someone who asked boring or repetitive questions like, 'What do you do?' and then just stopped there? Compare that to someone who asks deeper follow-ups like, 'What made you want to enter that career?' Or, 'What's your favorite part about it?' Curious people are unforgettable because they make others feel seen and valued. As you practice small talk and connections, Lowndes suggests a simple mantra to keep in mind. Be interested, not interesting. Many people focus on trying to impress others, showcasing their own accomplishments or stories. But the truth is, the person you're speaking with is not looking for a fascinating show. They're looking for connection. By being genuinely interested in them, you create rapport without effort. Finally, Lowndes introduces the magic of humor. You don't need to be a stand-up comedian to add a little laughter to your exchanges. A lighthearted comment here and there goes a long way. For instance, if there's a line for coffee at an event, you might say, "This coffee better give me superpowers for how long we waited." It's simple, it's playful, and it's enough to break the ice. By the end of this section of the book, you realize that small talk isn't small at all. It's the invisible glue holding bigger conversations together. With the tools Lowndes provides, you'll be able to light up any room and create meaningful connections that last. Part 3. The Art and Power of Listening. Talking might seem like the most important skill in communication, but Leil Lowndes flips the script and shows us that listening is where the magic really happens. She explains that when most people think of good communicators, they picture someone who speaks confidently, tells amazing stories, or cracks clever jokes. However, Lowndes argues that truly great communicators are phenomenal listeners. Why? Because when people feel heard and understood, they naturally feel closer to you. Think about a time when you were talking to someone and they were only half paying attention. Maybe they were checking their phone, looking around the room, or responding with short, uninterested answers like, "Oh," or "mm-hmm." How did that feel? Now, compare it to a time when someone gave you their full focus, nodding, asking follow-up questions, and responding enthusiastically. You probably felt valued and respected. That's what this part of the book is all about, becoming the kind of listener who makes people feel important. Lowndes begins by emphasizing active listening. Active listening is more than just hearing the words someone says. It's about being fully present in the moment and truly engaging with the other person. She highlights several simple techniques you can use to become a pro at active listening. The first technique is show genuine involvement. When someone is talking, don't just nod absent-mindedly or give automatic replies like "cool" or "oh, really." Instead, use verbal cues that show you're truly engaged. For instance, say things like, "That's so interesting. Tell me more about that." "Wow, what happened next? I can see why you feel that way." These responses let the speaker know you're paying attention and encourage them to open up even more. Lowndes also teaches us the art of echoing. This is one of the most powerful listening techniques in the book, and it's surprisingly simple. When someone shares something, repeat a few key words they said, but in a curious or affirmative tone. For example, if someone says, "I've been working on a new project lately," you could respond with, "A new project? That sounds exciting. What kind of project is it?" By echoing their words, you're showing that you're interested and giving them the green light to elaborate. It's such an easy trick, but it has a big impact because it makes the other person feel understood. Another key listening skill she introduces is listening with your body. Body language is a huge part of communication. Even when you're silent, your posture and facial expressions speak volumes. Lowndes suggests leaning in slightly when someone is speaking. It physically shows that you're engaged. Keep your arms uncrossed and make occasional eye contact, but not so much that it feels intense. Add small gestures like nodding or smiling when appropriate. These actions may seem minor, but they send a powerful nonverbal message. I'm here with you, and I care about what you're saying. One of my favorite tips from this section is what Lowndes calls the sticky eyes technique for listening. We already talked about sticky eyes in first impressions, but here it's about maintaining your focus during conversations. When someone's talking to you, give them the gift of your full attention. Resist the urge to look at your phone, check your watch, or glance around the room. Even if you're in a crowded or noisy space, try to lock your attention on the person in front of you. They'll notice and appreciate it. But what if someone's telling a story we don't necessarily find interesting? Lowndes has a brilliant solution. Look for their emotion. People don't just share facts, they share feelings. When someone talks about their day, they might feel excited about something new or frustrated by a tough situation. Tune into their emotions and respond accordingly. For example, if they say, "I've been swamped with work lately," notice the frustration in their tone and reply with, "That sounds stressful. How are you handling everything?" If they say, "I just joined a cooking class and it's so much fun," match their excitement. "That's amazing. Cooking classes seem like such a great way to unwind. What have you learned so far?" By focusing on emotions, you make even the dullest conversation topics meaningful because now you're connecting on a deeper level. Next, Lowndes introduces a concept called the conversational empath. This means practicing empathy while listening. It's not just about hearing the words they're saying. It's about putting yourself in their shoes. Imagine what it's like to experience what they're describing. When you show empathy, it naturally deepens the bond between you and the other person. For example, if someone says, "I've been struggling to keep up with my workload," empathetic listening might sound like, "That must be so overwhelming. How do you usually manage when things get hectic like this?" This not only shows you're listening, but it also makes the speaker feel supported. Lowndes also shares a practical tool for steering conversations in a positive direction. Listen for something uplifting. If a conversation starts to feel negative or heavy, gently guide it toward a brighter tone. You can do this by picking out something hopeful or cheerful they've said and focusing on that. For instance, if someone says, "This week has been so stressful at work, but at least I have the weekend to relax," you could respond, "Yes, the weekend is going to be such a nice break. Do you have anything fun planned?" This subtle shift helps keep the conversation from becoming draining while still showing that you care. Another golden rule for listening is avoiding the temptation to one-up. Have you ever been in a conversation where you're sharing an experience and the other person interrupts with a bigger or more dramatic story of their own? It can feel dismissive. For example, you say, "I finally got promoted at work after 3 years of hard work." They say, "Oh yeah? I got promoted in just 2 years." Lowndes explains that competitive conversations make people feel undervalued. Instead, celebrate their victories without turning the spotlight back on yourself. Say something like, "Wow, that's such an amazing achievement. You must be so proud." In moments when you don't know what to say, Lowndes offers a reassuring technique: the comfortable silence. You don't always have to fill every pause in a conversation. Sometimes being present in quiet moments can speak louder than words. If someone gets emotional or pauses to gather their thoughts, resist the urge to jump in. Simply hold space for them, and when they're ready, they'll continue. Finally, Lowndes reminds us to tie up conversations with a bow. Ending a conversation gracefully is just as important as starting it strong. As the interaction wraps up, summarize one meaningful thing the other person shared. For example, "I loved hearing about your trip to Italy. It sounds like such a dream destination. I'll have to add it to my travel list." This shows that you were paying attention, and it leaves the other person feeling appreciated. By mastering these listening techniques, you won't just become a better conversationalist. You'll become someone people love talking to. Humans crave connection, and listening deeply is one of the most powerful ways to form that bond. Lowndes sums it up beautifully. The best conversationalists are those who make others feel heard and understood. Part 4. How to hold interest and become unforgettable in conversations. Sometimes we meet people who are good at talking. They are fun to listen to, and they hold your attention. But what makes them so interesting? It's not that they know everything, but they know how to express things well. People remember stories. A good story can keep someone's attention. It lets them connect with you. Lowndes explains that telling great stories is a skill you can learn. You don't need to have a thrilling life story. Even simple daily events can be told well. It's about how you tell them. For example, imagine you're sharing an experience about missing a bus. Instead of saying, "I missed the bus and it was terrible," add some details. You could say, "It started to rain, and I was running toward the bus stop. Just when I got there, the bus doors closed and it drove off. Everyone inside looked at me, and I felt like a movie character." This adds humor or drama, making the story stronger and memorable. Lowndes suggests practicing your stories in advance. Maybe rehearse them in your head or share them with a friend. The goal is not to sound rehearsed, but natural and confident. If you know the key points of the story, you will find it easier to express. Another way to keep the conversation alive is by showing curiosity. People love to talk about themselves. If they are telling a story, listen carefully and ask questions about what they shared. This keeps them engaged. You don't need to know everything about the topic. Just being interested is enough to keep the flow. At the same time, Lowndes reminds us not to dominate the conversation. It's not about talking the most. Instead, it's about keeping the balance. Let the other person feel included. If you share a story, follow it with a question. For example, "That's how my weekend went. How about yours?" Every great talker is also a great listener. The more you allow people to contribute, the more they enjoy the conversation. They will want to talk to you again. People remember how they felt when they talked to you. Make them feel heard. You don't have to be funny to keep someone entertained, but humor helps. If you notice something funny during a conversation, point it out lightly. For example, "This is a great party, but I think I've already met the same person twice." Observations like these make people laugh softly and feel closer to you. Lowndes also shares a great tip for leaving a lasting impression. It's about linking your conversations to something personal. For example, if you know someone loves dogs, mention a funny dog video you saw recently. This shows you care about their interests and makes you memorable. A trick she suggests is to make conversational bookmarks. This means remembering small, personal details shared by people, like their hobbies or something exciting they are doing. The next time you meet, bring it up. For instance, last time you mentioned you were starting yoga classes. How's it going? This leaves people impressed because it shows you were listening and you remembered them. Lastly, create confident endings to your conversations. When you're wrapping up a talk, end with something warm or thoughtful. Instead of saying, "Okay, bye," you could say, "It was so great talking to you. I really enjoyed this conversation." This leaves them with a positive feeling about you. The goal is not to talk perfectly, but to connect genuinely. When people think of good conversations, they remember someone who made them feel interesting and valued. Using stories, humor, curiosity, and warmth, you can be that person people love to talk to. Part 5. Building relationships that last. Talking to someone once is easy. Building a relationship that lasts takes effort. Relationships don't happen overnight. They grow slowly, step by step. Just like a plant needs water, relationships need attention. Lowndes explains that one key to building strong relationships is making people feel comfortable. You can do this by showing kindness. Small acts of kindness matter more than you think. A smile, a thank you, or a compliment can brighten someone's day and make them remember you positively. She also emphasizes the importance of remembering people's names. When you use someone's name in a conversation, they feel seen. For example, if someone introduces themselves as Sarah, say, "Sarah, it's so great to meet you." Using their name often helps it stick in your memory. Lowndes suggests repeating the name silently to yourself as soon as you hear it. This little habit makes it hard to forget. Another way to build stronger relationships is to ask meaningful follow-up questions. If someone has shared an exciting story, don't just leave it there. A week later, ask them about it. For instance, if they said, "I'm planning a vacation to Italy," you can ask later, "How was your trip to Italy? Did you visit Rome?" This shows that you paid attention and valued what they told you. Lowndes talks about making connections deeper through shared interests. When two people enjoy the same thing, it's like finding a shortcut to bonding. If you find out someone loves hiking and you also enjoy it, mention this. For example, "You love hiking? I just explored a great trail last weekend. Maybe I can recommend it." Shared interests create a sense of belonging. A fun technique she describes is introducing humor into relationships. People love to laugh. Even if you're not a naturally funny person, you can share funny observations. For example, if you're at a long meeting, say, "We should get a trophy just for surviving this meeting." Light jokes like these break the ice and make you memorable. Another important tip is being generous, not necessarily with money, but with your energy. Ask yourself, how can I help this person feel special? Maybe it's offering to help with something or sending them a useful article. Even a small act of thoughtfulness can build trust and goodwill. Lowndes also highlights something she calls emotional deposits. Think of relationships like bank accounts. Each kind action you make is a deposit into the emotional bank account. When you remember their birthday, listen to their problems, or compliment their skills, you're adding value. Over time, these small deposits build a strong emotional bond. On the flip side, avoid withdrawing too much. Behaviors like breaking promises, ignoring people, or being overly critical act like emotional withdrawals. Too many withdrawals can weaken even the best relationships. That's why staying consistent is important. If you're kind today but rude tomorrow, people may feel uncertain about you. Lowndes gives another interesting tip. Use exclusivity. This doesn't mean excluding others. It means making someone feel like they belong to a special group with you. For example, if you share an inside joke with a coworker, you've created a private connection. You could say something like, "Remember the coffee machine disaster last week? We're now the official survivors club." Little moments like these become relationship glue. One thing many people forget is the importance of following up. Let's say you meet someone at an event, and you have a great conversation. If you don't reach out later, that connection might fade. Send them a message afterward. It could be simple like, "It was so nice meeting you at the conference. I enjoyed our chat about travel." Following up keeps the door open for more conversations. Lowndes also explains how to handle differences smoothly. No two people see the world the same way. You might disagree with someone on a topic. That's okay. Instead of arguing, acknowledge their point first. You can say, "I see where you're coming from, and it's interesting." This shows respect. Then share your perspective kindly. Disagreements don't have to break relationships if handled with care. Building great relationships also means knowing when to give space. Don't overwhelm people. For example, if someone prefers texting instead of calls, respect that. Flexibility shows emotional intelligence. Every person is different, and adapting to those differences strengthens bonds. A critical thing to remember is to celebrate people's achievements. If your friend gets a promotion, congratulate them with excitement. You could say, "You worked so hard for this. You deserve it." Celebrations bring positivity into relationships. Even small victories like someone finishing a tough project deserve recognition. Lowndes also suggests sharing positive gossip. Normally, gossip is negative and harmful, but sharing good things about someone when they're not present builds their image. For example, "Did you know Emily helped organize the entire event? She's amazing at planning." When the news reaches Emily, she'll appreciate your kindness. Sometimes relationships go through tough times. Maybe a miscommunication happens, or someone feels hurt. In such moments, apology is the key to repairing bonds. Saying sorry doesn't make you weak. It makes you more respected. You can say, "I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, and I'm sorry if I did." Be sincere, and most people will forgive quickly. Lowndes also talks about how making people feel important creates unforgettable relationships. Say thank you often. Notice their efforts, even the small ones. Compliment them authentically. For instance, "I noticed how patient you were today during that long meeting." Not many people have that skill. This might seem like a tiny comment, but it can stay with people for days. Lastly, there's the golden rule. Treat people the way you would want to be treated. It sounds simple, but it's often overlooked. If you want kind friends, be a kind friend. If you want trustworthy coworkers, be someone they can count on. As Lowndes says, "The energy you give is the energy you attract." Great relationships don't happen overnight. They take patience, care, and thoughtfulness. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present. A good relationship feels effortless because both people put in the effort to keep it alive. Every conversation you have is like a brick. Over time, these bricks build something strong. By remembering names, celebrating successes, and showing gentle kindness, you create bonds that last a lifetime. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. Part 6. Becoming persuasive and influential in conversations. Talking to others is not just about chatting. Sometimes you need to inspire, convince, or change someone's mind. This isn't manipulation. It is using the right words in the right way. Lowndes explains that great communicators know how to guide conversations. They keep the other person's comfort in mind. One key idea she shares is to first build trust. Trust opens doors in any conversation. Without trust, people won't listen or feel motivated. How do you build trust? Start by being consistent. Say what you mean and mean what you say. If you promise something, follow through. Even small promises matter. For example, if you tell a coworker you'll send them an article, make sure you do it. People remember these little things. Each kept promise adds to your trust account. On the other hand, breaking promises, even small ones, can make people doubt you quickly. Another way to build trust is to speak sincerely. Lowndes suggests using phrases that show honesty. For instance, if you're giving advice, you could say, "This is just my opinion, but here's what I think." This shows humility and puts the other person at ease. People trust those who don't try to sound superior. Lowndes also talks about speaking to people's self-interest. Everyone asks a question deep down. What's in it for me? If you address this, your words become powerful. For instance, if you're trying to suggest an idea at work, don't focus on why you think it's good. Instead, explain how it will benefit the team or company. For example, imagine you're trying to suggest a new tool for your office. Instead of saying, "I think this tool will make my job easier," you could say, "This tool will save the team 10 hours a week and reduce mistakes." Always frame your words with their benefit in mind. Lowndes introduces the concept of yes set to make conversations flow. This means starting with simple statements or questions that the other person is likely to agree with. For instance, "Wouldn't it be great if things ran more smoothly?" Or, "We both want this project to succeed, right?" Small yeses set the tone and make the bigger conversation easier. Tone of voice is also important. Have you ever noticed how some people can say the simplest things, but they sound inspiring? That's usually because of how they speak. Lowndes recommends lowering your voice slightly. A calm tone adds confidence to your words. Rushed speech, on the other hand, makes you seem unsure. Practice speaking at a steady pace. Another tip Lowndes shares is how to leave a lasting impression. She explains that people remember conversational high points. These are moments in your interaction that spark emotion. For example, if someone mentions a recent success, make it a high point by congratulating them in a special way. Instead of saying, "That's nice," you could say, "Wow, that's an incredible achievement. How did you do it?" Listening is another tool for influence. People trust you more when they feel heard. To show you're listening, repeat parts of what they say. If someone says, "I've been busy preparing for a big presentation," respond with, "A big presentation? That sounds like a lot of work. How's it going?" This tells them that you're paying attention, which strengthens your bond. Lowndes also encourages using emotion to drive conversations. People don't just make decisions based on logic. They feel first, then think. For instance, if you're persuading someone to donate to charity, instead of talking about numbers, share a personal story about someone the charity helped. Stories make ideas more relatable and powerful. A technique she recommends is using what-if questions. This sparks imagination. For example, if you want someone to try a new activity, ask, "What if this becomes your new favorite hobby? Imagine how much fun it could be." Such questions allow the other person to see your idea as exciting and possible. When making suggestions, how you word them matters greatly. Instead of saying, "You should do this," adjust it slightly by saying, "What do you think about this idea?" Or, "Have you ever considered trying this?" These options feel less forceful. People are more likely to say yes when they feel like they are choosing freely. Lowndes also emphasizes the importance of little compliments during tough conversations. For instance, if you're giving constructive feedback, start with something positive. Instead of saying, "You need to fix this report," begin with, "I'm really impressed by your efforts on this report, and I have a small suggestion to make it even better." Positivity softens criticism and makes the other person more open. Leaving a conversation strongly is as important as starting it. Lowndes suggests ending interactions with thoughtful or warm words. After discussing a work matter, you can say, "Thanks for listening. Your input means a lot." Thoughtful endings leave people with a good feeling about you. In group settings, Lowndes talks about being the person who connects others. For example, if two people in your group don't know each other, introduce them by highlighting something they'd enjoy. You could say, "John, meet Sarah. Sarah is a great photographer. John loves nature photography. You two should chat." Adding value to conversations makes you hard to forget. Lowndes also speaks about the power of humor. Humor doesn't mean telling jokes all the time. It's about seeing the lighter side of things. For example, if everyone at a meeting looks tired, you might say, "I think we all need coffee breaks after this." These small moments bring people closer and create a fun atmosphere. Influence isn't about always being the loudest voice in the room. It's about understanding people and matching their energy. If you notice someone is shy, adjust your tone to make them comfortable. If someone is excited and full of energy, match their enthusiasm. Flexibility like this builds stronger bonds. Lastly, Lowndes reminds us to keep practicing. Every conversation is a chance to become better. Start with small adjustments, like using what-if questions or ending chats on a warm note. Over time, these habits make a big difference. Building influence isn't about forcing people to do things, it's about inspiring them. When you learn how to speak kindly, listen deeply, and guide conversations naturally, people start to trust and value your opinions. This is how you leave lasting impressions. And if someone doesn't agree with you, that's okay too. The goal of communication isn't always to win. Sometimes just listening and being present is enough. That creates connection. Over time, these connections grow into strong, meaningful relationships. Part 7. Handling difficult conversations and turning conflict into connection. Not every conversation is easy. Sometimes conflicts happen. Misunderstandings can arise. People can get upset, frustrated, or even defensive. In these moments, a calm and thoughtful approach matters most. Lowndes explains that handling tricky conversations is not just about what you say. It's also about your mindset. Before anything else, remind yourself, your goal is to solve the problem, not win the argument. This reminder changes how you approach things. Instead of focusing on proving your point, focus on finding common ground. One key strategy is to stay calm. When emotions run high, it's easy to speak without thinking. But Lowndes advises pausing before you respond. Think about how your words will affect the other person. Take a deep breath if you feel tense. A calm tone helps diffuse tension quickly. She also shares that empathy is your most powerful tool. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Imagine how they must feel. For example, if someone is upset because of a mistake, acknowledge their emotions. Say something like, "I can see why this is frustrating for you." This simple act of understanding makes the other person feel heard. Another tip is to avoid blaming language. For instance, instead of saying, "You always miss deadlines," say, "I noticed this deadline was missed. Can we figure out how to stay on track next time?" This changes the tone from accusation to collaboration. The goal is to solve the issue, not to point fingers. When you're in a disagreement, Lowndes suggests using I statements instead of you statements. For example, say, I felt disappointed when I didn't hear back, instead of, you didn't respond to me. I statements sound less confrontational and make the other person more open to dialogue. Lowndes emphasizes the importance of finding something to agree on. Even in disagreements, there's often some common ground. For example, in an argument about work processes, you might say, we both want the project to succeed, so let's figure out the best way together. Finding small areas of agreement builds trust and lowers defensiveness. Another helpful tip is to reframe the conversation. If someone is being negative, gently guide the focus toward solutions. For instance, if they say, this task is impossible, you could reply, it seems challenging, but maybe if we break it into smaller steps, it will feel manageable. Reframing avoids getting stuck in negativity. When emotions start to settle, Lowndes advises using humor to lighten the mood. Humor helps people relax and open up. For example, if tension rises during a group discussion, you might say lightly, okay, I think we all deserve a donut after this. A small laugh can ease the atmosphere. In difficult conversations, listening becomes even more important. Lowndes reminds us that most conflicts escalate because people feel unheard. Let the other person talk first. Resist interrupting, even if you feel strongly about your own viewpoint. Listening without judgment shows respect and gives you time to understand their perspective better. When the other person finishes talking, summarize what they said. For example, you might say, so what I'm hearing is that you felt left out of the decision-making process. Is that correct? This not only ensures you understand their concerns, but also makes them feel validated. Lowndes teaches us that apologizing correctly can save relationships. Saying sorry doesn't mean you're weak. It means you value harmony. If you've made a mistake, own it. Say, I'm sorry I didn't communicate better about the changes. That was my oversight. A genuine apology can mend trust quickly. Interestingly, Lowndes explains that the way you apologize matters too. Don't dilute your apology with excuses. For instance, instead of saying, I'm sorry, but I was busy, simply say, I'm sorry for being late. I'll do better next time. A clean apology is far more effective. She also highlights the importance of giving others an out. Sometimes people make mistakes but are too embarrassed to admit them. You can help by making it easier for them to save face. For example, if someone forgets a task, instead of calling them out harshly, you might say, I know things have been really busy lately. Do you need help with this? Another brilliant concept she discusses is learning to say no politely. Many people struggle with refusing requests, fearing it might upset others. Lowndes suggests using a kind but firm approach. For instance, instead of saying, I can't help you, say, I wish I could help, but I've got too much on my plate right now. This shows respect for their request while setting boundaries. Lowndes also explains how to redirect anger. If someone raises their voice or gets aggressive, don't match their tone. Instead, stay neutral and lower your voice slightly. Responding calmly often makes the other person mirror your tone. For example, if someone says angrily, why didn't you tell me sooner? You can reply, I understand how that might feel frustrating. Let me explain what happened. Humility is another big factor in resolving conflict. Lowndes advises admitting when you don't have all the answers. For instance, if someone challenges your idea, it's okay to say, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of it that way. Let's explore this together. People respect you more when you show willingness to learn. Some conflicts don't get resolved immediately, and that's okay. Lowndes suggests ending tough conversations on a positive note. You can say, "I'm glad we had this discussion. Let's continue to work through this together." This leaves the door open for improvement without lingering negativity. She also reminds us that not every conflict needs to be addressed right away. If emotions are too high, suggest taking a break. For example, "This is an important discussion, but I think we're both feeling stressed. Can we revisit it tomorrow?" Giving space can prevent things from spiraling out of control. Respectful conversations make people feel safe. Safety builds trust, and trust strengthens connections. Even a difficult topic can bring people closer when handled with care. Lowndes ends this section by reminding us to focus on rebuilding after tough conversations. Follow up later with kindness. For instance, "I really appreciated how open you were about that issue. I feel like we made progress." This shows maturity and strengthens the relationship further. Talking during tough situations can be challenging, but with patience, empathy, and thoughtfulness, even the hardest conversations can end on good terms. Part 8. Creating a memorable presence in every conversation. Every conversation leaves an impression. Some people walk into a room and make everyone feel their energy. Others leave no trace. Lowndes explains that creating a memorable presence isn't about being loud or flashy. It's about mastering subtle, meaningful habits that set you apart. One of the first habits Lowndes talks about is giving people your full attention. In a world full of distractions, undivided attention is like a rare gift. When someone talks to you, make them feel like they're the only person in the room. Listen deeply, make eye contact, and show curiosity about what they're saying. You'll stand out simply because being truly present is so uncommon. She suggests a simple trick. When you meet someone, act as if you're excited to see them. Even if it's a stranger, a small moment of warmth can make a big difference. Smile when you greet them. Let your eyes light up. Lowndes calls this the spotlight effect. Make the other person feel like a star in that moment. They will remember how good you made them feel. Another powerful way to leave a lasting impression is by using someone's name. People love hearing their own name. It creates an instant sense of recognition. For instance, if you're saying goodbye, don't just say, "Bye." Instead, say, "It was great meeting you, Amanda." This small touch makes the interaction personal. Lowndes also highlights the importance of showing gratitude. A simple thank you can make an ordinary moment feel extraordinary. For example, if someone helps you with a task, say, "Thank you so much. I couldn't have done it without you." Don't just thank people for big favors. Appreciate the little things too. Gratitude creates warmth and strengthens bonds. Another tip she provides is to leave conversations with a thoughtful goodbye. Instead of walking away with a casual, "See you later," say something that adds value. For instance, "This was such a great conversation. I really enjoyed talking to you." This leaves a positive imprint that lasts even after the interaction ends. Lowndes explains that memorable people also share a sense of humor. Humor doesn't mean telling jokes all the time. It means approaching life with a light attitude. If something funny happens, laugh about it. For instance, if the elevator gets stuck, you could say, "Looks like we're stuck here long enough for a new friendship." Small moments of humor stick in people's minds. She also emphasizes being kind in small but surprising ways. For instance, compliment someone out of the blue. If a coworker is good at handling difficult clients, tell them, "You're amazing with people. I don't know how you do it." Unexpected kindness lingers because people love to feel appreciated. Lowndes gives another interesting tip for being unforgettable. Be a bit unpredictable. For example, at work, people might expect you to keep conversations formal. Surprise them with a cheerful comment like, "Wow, your presentation was so good. You could teach a class." These unexpected yet genuine comments break the monotony and make you stand out. She also talks about showing enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is contagious. When you talk about something you love, let your excitement show. For instance, if you're recommending a book to a friend, don't just say, "It's good." Instead, say, "It's one of the best things I've ever read. I couldn't put it down." Your energy makes people curious and draws them in. Lowndes reminds us that being memorable doesn't mean talking a lot. Sometimes it's about letting others shine. Ask them about their passions, hobbies, or goals. People remember those who show genuine interest in their lives. The less you focus on yourself and the more you focus on others, the more memorable you become. Another way to leave a solid impression is showing emotional intelligence. Pay attention to how people feel. If someone seems stressed, offer words of encouragement. You can say, "You've got this. I believe in you." People never forget those who lift them up during tough times. Lowndes suggests mastering the art of storytelling. A good story can leave an everlasting impression. Practice telling short, meaningful tales that connect emotionally. For instance, share a lesson you learned or a funny experience. But keep it brief. Nobody likes long, dragged-out stories. The power lies in being both concise and engaging. Another way to create a memorable presence is by doing small follow-ups. Maybe someone mentioned a book they love. Send them a message later saying, "I just checked out that book you recommended. Thank you for the great suggestion." Follow-ups show thoughtfulness and leave a lasting impression. Lowndes also explains that being memorable doesn't mean trying to impress everyone. Authenticity is key. Be yourself. If you try too hard to fit in or stand out, it comes off as insincere. People connect with honesty and realness. If you're kind, curious, and respectful, people will naturally remember you. Body language plays a big role in leaving a strong impression. Lowndes advises standing tall and confident. Don't slouch or fold in on yourself. Even if you're nervous, act like you belong. Confidence is magnetic. People remember those who carry themselves with ease. Another small trick for standing out is using humor or emotions in goodbyes. For example, instead of a boring "take care," you could say, "I'm looking forward to our next chat. You always make things so fun." Adding personality makes you impossible to forget. Lowndes explains that timing also matters in being memorable. Don't overstay your welcome in conversations. Leave while the energy is still high. It's better for people to wish the conversation lasted longer than to feel relief when it ends. A graceful exit is often what people remember most. Finally, always focus on leaving people with positive emotions. Whether it's a joke, a compliment, or a thoughtful goodbye, end interactions on a high note. If they smile when they think of you later, you've succeeded in being memorable. Lowndes sums it up beautifully. Being unforgettable in conversations is not about being impressive. It's about being genuine. When you make someone laugh, feel appreciated, or feel understood, you leave a mark that lasts far longer than words. Practice these small habits every day. Inject kindness, humor, and gratitude into every conversation. Over time, they will become a natural part of who you are. People will look forward to talking to you. They will walk away feeling better simply because they met you.